In this first video, we're going to look at the layout of Microsoft Excel. So I'm just going to open the program. You've got to go to, probably on Windows, you go to the Start menu and you open it. Now, whenever you open up, usually it comes up asking you what you want to do. Do you want to just open up a template, or do you want to have a blank workbook? We usually want to do a blank workbook. Now, the idea for this first exercise is just to go through the layout of this program. Now, mine looks a little bit different from yours because I'm using a MacBook, but essentially the program should be pretty much the same. The only differences, the main differences you can see here is, of course, that mine's got a sort of dark mode. It looks sort of black here, but yours will be almost the same. There might be one or two things. I think this draw option here, you don't have that. Okay, now in this first exercise, what you need to do is label up the diagram that you've got. Okay, so the first thing we want to look at is the different features that we've got in our program here. So in Microsoft Excel, what you've got here at the top, all of this stuff is called a menu ribbon. Okay, so this whole menu is a menu ribbon, and you can see all of these along the top, and you can see it's currently on the Home tab. Okay, now on the Home tab we've got all of these items in this first section. This is all related to the font, so you can see I've got my font type, font size. I can increase or decrease the font size. I can make it bold, italics, underline. I can do a border around a cell, which is down here, border around a cell, and I can change the color of the cell, fill color, and the font color. Okay, so you need to label up in your diagram all of these things. So you've got font, font type, font size, increase, decrease font size, bold, italics, underlined. And you can see, obviously, I can do double underline, but underline's fine, just that one you can label up. Border, right? So you can do all sorts of borders around a cell. So you'd say this is the cell border. And then fill color and font color. Right, on the next tab along, you've probably got these, which are the justification. So this is where it sits on the cell, like say text or numbers, and this is all to do, well, the justification or alignment, you might call this. So here I've got left aligned, center, right aligned, and then up here I've got aligned to the top, middle, or bottom, and then here you can see I've got indentation. Okay, so you can say decrease or increase of the indent. Now we're going to skip this one because it's obvious. We've got wrap text and merge here. This is the type of data. Okay, so the type of data that's in one of these cells down here, and that will, here you can see at the minute it's on general, but you may want to change it to some of these different data types. So we've got data types here, and you can see we've got general, which is just non-specific, that is just letters and numbers. You've got then a number data type, you've got currency, accounting, short date, long date, time, percentage, fraction, scientific, text, specifically text only, and then there's obviously more formats that you can do as well, but these are the main ones, and most of the time you're probably going to be looking at general, number, currency, short date, possibly. Okay, after that we've got conditional formatting. Conditional formatting is related to if something is if a cell, for example, has got specific information in it, then it can change a color. All right, that's usually the kind of thing that we can do, and we can set up rules for that. That's conditional formatting. Okay, that's the main things. The other things we've got over here is, this is to do our formulas. Now, formulas, what we do is we use functions. Now this is similar to like programming, where you've got functions to do something in a programming language. So the ones that you may have seen in a programming language could have been I don't know, to output something on a screen, or it could be to change something into an integer, or it could be even things like sum, average, find the minimum and the maximum. Okay, so these are all our functions, and we can look up more functions here. This other one is sort, so you can sort things into ascending order, and you can set up filters, which are really, really useful when you've got lots of data. Okay, so label all of that up on the home layout here. And the next thing we need to do is look at some of these other bits that we've got here. So directly underneath this main ribbon, menu ribbon, we've got over here is the name box. Now, what is the name box? Well, the name box is the name of a cell. Now, you can see if I click on different cells, that cell name changes. But I can also click in here and give that a name. So can you imagine I called it, say, for example, title, and pressed enter. Now A1 is called title. Okay, so that's something you can do there. You can change the name. So that's the name box. Right. So just label that up, name box, and it tells you which cell you're currently on, or if you want to change them to change the cell, or even a range of cells. We can do a range of cells and give that a name if I want to. So those are all things that we can do. Now the next one's over here. This next one is the formula bar, and the formula bar is where you will see a formula, which is usually mathematical, right? And this is usually written in here. So as an example, we can actually just write it in here, but you will see it come up here. So if I do say if I do 15 in here, there you can see if I click on that cell, up in the formula bar, it just says the number 15. But if I do another one, say 4, just as an example, so I got 15 and 4. If I wanted the answer of these two, I can do this, equal sign, so all formulas start off with an equal sign. I can then click on this cell, do a plus sign, and click on this cell. And now you can see here it shows me the answer to the addition, but up in the formula bar it shows me the formula. And I can click on that formula bar and you can see it color codes it as well, so you can see exactly what I'm adding together to give me the answer. Okay, so that's really useful that you can do that and see the formula. So that's the formula bar. Now, the next thing along here is these columns. So you've got columns for A, B, C, D, all the way to Z, and then it goes past Z, and you got AA, AB, AC, and then it would go on and on and on. There's a lot of them. There's a lot of rows as well. So in terms of rows, I think there's something like 65,000. So more than you'll probably ever need. You can see I can go all the way down into my hundreds here. So these are cell columns and row columns. And then up on the left here, this top one up here, just up there, you can see I can actually click on that, which basically selects everything. Select everything. The other thing you can do here is adjust these column widths. So you can see if I go between them, I can do this. If I just double click between them, you can see it's reduced it to the size of whatever's in that cell. So if I put, hello, my name is Paul, for example, in here, then double click in between the C and D, it's adjusted it to the size of that cell. So you can drag and adjust cell sizes, and you can also double click to adjust cell sizes. And you can also do this with all of the cells. I mean, you can imagine if you wanted to do that one, and this one, all at the same time, you can actually just select all of them and then double click in between them, and you can see it's done all three of those cells, adjusted them to a different width. And if I do the same like that, you can see it's already adjusted these. So I'm doing that with multiple selections, and just double click in between the cell and it's automatically adjusting like this. The same applies for rows. The other thing we can do is we can right click up in this column heading, for example, and insert and it usually inserts to the left, as you can see there. So if I do insert, it's inserted to the left, and I've inserted cells in between. And you can do the same with rows. You can right click, insert, and you can see you can do that, right? You can adjust these row heights as well. Right, that is your column, cell columns and row columns. Okay, and this select all option here. Now, the next thing that you need to label up would be, well, what a cell is. So this cell I'm on now is C4. Here's D4. Here's C11. You just need to know that these are cells, a single cell, C-E-L-L. And if I select several cells, you need to label up that this is a range of cells. Now, how do we define a range of cells? Well, this range of cells would go from B1 down to C6. So that's what you're saying, B1 to C6. So if I select over here, these cells, what am I doing? I've got G4 all the way down to L15. G4 to L15. That's a range, and it's a range columns going across and rows down. So you need to draw on your diagram a range of cells and then label it up what it is. So I've got here G4 to L16. You just select a couple of cells and you can see you can do that. Right, the other thing we can do is at the bottom here, add more spreadsheets. So we've got here these things called sheets. If I do the plus sign, you can see I can add more sheets. And that is literally just another sheet. Exactly the same as the first sheet that we've got here. We've done that. And we could also name these. So I can name a sheet to give it more relative name. And you can do this for lots of different ones, of course, as well. And we'll see that we'll maybe do this in the future. The other thing you can do is right click on here and you can move or copy. So you can say create a copy of a sheet. Say you've done something here and you want to do something different but has the same kind of format, where you can make a copy of it. So you can do all of those kind of things too. Down on the bottom right then, you've just got your zoom level. So you can zoom in, make it bigger and smaller, as you can see right there. Okay. Now, the next bit we want to look at would be what you've got under these things like insert. Now, insert everything that you can insert. Now, you can see you can insert things like pictures, shapes, icons, but the more important one would be charts, and we can do some charts in here, and this will be very useful. So under the insert tab, just highlight, put a little arrow pointing to it saying that you can do insert pictures, shapes, icons, and then charts as being one of the most important ones that we can insert. But of course you can also see that we can do some other things like comments, adding in some sort of text to the document. So you could got headers and footers in here. That's usually very useful because if you're printing out a spreadsheet, you might want a header so it gives it a title, and you might want a footer to have your name on it as an example. Okay, and the other thing that we can also do is insert symbols. Right, the draw tab I don't believe you have on your version of Excel, but that's fine. Page layout, well, it's all related to making things like themes. Changing the orientation from portrait to landscape would be the most important one that you would ever want to use here, because you might want to print a document out or spreadsheet out in a specific orientation, portrait or landscape. And then the size, of course, well, it's usually A4 anyway, so you usually don't have to change that. The only other thing that you might need to look at would be print area. So can you imagine you've got a spreadsheet which has got all these hundreds and hundreds of possible cells, and you may have filled a certain amount of them. So what you can do is you can select an area that you want to print out. So if I did set print area, what it's going to do is leave this line you can see here, And what that will do is whenever I go to print, it'll just print this area only. Okay, so that's something you can do under page layouts. So page layouts, you can set orientation, portrait landscape, size, print area. They're the main things that are very useful when you're doing spreadsheets. Okay, the formulas. Under formulas, well, it's going to have the usual things where you've got recently used formulas, and these are all different formulas which you'll come to use in the future. We may not even need to look at these specifically. You've got hundreds and hundreds of different types of formulas, logical ones. You can see you've got things related to text. We will use very specific ones, but there's many, many functions that you can actually do to work out different sort of equations as such. Data. Under data, this is useful because it also gives us some of the things which is related to, as you can see, sorting and filtering, which is also on the home tab, but the main one under data would be data validation. We would want to do some data validation on some of our spreadsheets here. That would be the main thing that you can highlight under data. Review, there isn't main things, I mean, apart from spell checking. Maybe you could do spell checking on the review tab. You can also do things like protect a sheet, so that you can password protect a sheet, but I wouldn't advise that you don't really need to do that because you're not protecting it. You don't need to protect your data. But the main thing is that under review you got the spell checker, and under view then, view's got some nice little things where you can sort of hide the formula bar if you don't want to see it. Hide grid lines is an example, but usually you do want to see these things anyway. Also related to the zoom, and you can then do this interesting thing where you can freeze panes. So imagine I'm on this C1, I could do freeze pane, and what happens when I scroll along to the right, you can see it's still got those first two ones highlighted, and you can do that horizontally across, as you can see, and vertically up and down. Okay, that's everything that you need to label up for your diagram at the minute on spreadsheets.